Are zombies marginalized and oppressed? Is Richard Pace a gamma soy boy? Is the fat man a gatekeeper? Will the unibrow kitten killer ever get laid? Will cash grab make your breasts larger and your tool bigger? Find out more here. Remember, kids, mundane Matt deplatforms people. Don't be a mundane Matt. Don't be a flaggart. The difference between his profile picture and his off-the-cuff picture is about 100 pounds, a hairline, and a hell of a beer gut. Click the links to send me art, gossip, news, or just vent. You know, Bianca, if you didn't say so many stupid things, you'd have a lot more subs. Yes, but then I wouldn't be me. But Bianca, being you just isn't that cool. In retrospect, perhaps I should have used a different name for the channel because Bianca sounds like a stage name or a pen name for a children's writer. The name is taken from a book I wrote by the same name about a group of burned-out degenerates who get caught in the zombie apocalypse. It stars a drug-addicted transsexual sex worker, her perpetually stoned Mexican boyfriend, and a few other ne'er-do-wells. It started off as a Comicsgate parody, back in the day when everyone still acted their age, instead of acting like developmentally delayed bundles of sticks. There was a zombie outbreak at a convention full of CG folks and anti-CG SJWs. The zombie Mark Waid, Tim Doyle, and Renfamous eat Myers and EVS alive. Basically, I included everyone from Comicsgate and anti-Comicsgate. The story only used the Comicsgate stuff in the beginning as a funny way to set the scene. I figured if I ever did a graphic novel, it would start with that setting, having to survive the Z's at a Comic-Con. There's a scene where I pull a pair of panties off of a hot girl in a short skirt and throw them in the zombie crowd so some nerds will go chasing them to their horrible deaths as a distraction for our heroes to escape. Now I would probably use the unibrow as the sacrificial lamb, or the Hut. If unibrow would start eating less junk food, he would do fine with the ladies, or men. I just sort of assume that he's into blondes with nice jugs. The story continues into a post-apocalyptic tale of killing Z's and surviving. It's a fun story, but it slowly started to develop more adult scenes. At first, it was just flirtation to build up tension, then a sex scene where when it got too detailed, I just figured a graphic novel would fade to black. But then the sex scenes became more graphic, and since one of the characters is trans, it means it's two gay dudes. So writing that was a bit of a stretch, but I used my imagination and a lot of mental lubricant and just forced myself to finish. I quickly learned why people mostly leave adult stuff out of books, or at least the hard stuff, because all it takes is one scene to turn a PG book into an X, and it totally changes the whole tone of the story. It feels sort of shocking to have a humorous story with an adult scene in it. I think the reader may feel a bit betrayed unless there is a warning on the cover. And if you put one adult scene in, it becomes easier to include a second one and a third one. Then by the fourth, you've got the trans chick fisting the hot real girl. Just absolute degeneracy. I have no problem with BLT people, obviously, but I also believe that it's okay to laugh at everyone, except for Muslims, because they'll go all 911 Charlie Hebdo on you. Oh, and there are a group of socialist furries who are after our plucky zombie-fighting heroes who are live streaming their zombie-fighting adventures. The furries believe that zombies are marginalized and oppressed systemically and systematically, something, and the running joke is that these socialists protest people killing Z's but then get eaten alive by them at their Z Lives Matter rallies. It has a lot of those types of parody spoof jokes in it, so you know EVS would probably gatekeep it out of Comicsgate, but whatever, it was just written for fun. Anyway, so Richard Pace shows some balls on Twitter and dares to suggest that perhaps it's not fair for men to compete against women in fighting and beat the heck out of them to the point where a man breaks a woman's skull. Pace was referring to Fallon Fox, MMA fighter who was a dude for 30 years, and still is a dude, then called himself a lady and entered the ladies' competition where he proceeded to beat women half to death. Richard Pace touched on the idea that hormone replacement therapy doesn't shorten bone length or reduce the advantage the male body has, which in sports is extensive. It's why there are sports leagues separated by sex. If men's and women's teams had open competitions, the NBA wouldn't change, but the WNBA would be 100% male, and people would probably actually start going to the games. The women's Olympic soccer team will occasionally play with high school boys just to kind of keep in touch, keep on edge, and the 15-year-old boys beat the women because biology. There are 2 high school boys who put on wigs, call themselves girls, and started winning in track and field. It's funny until you realize that those 2 brothers are stealing scholarships from the girls who won't be going to college now. These brothers will be going in their place, at least until they flunk out, which they probably will do because I think they might be low IQ. I heard them in an interview and they actually sounded kind of retarded. So it's bad enough when boys are stealing scholarships from girls, but what about MMA? Should men be allowed to beat women to the point of breaking their skulls? The deal with Fallon Fox is he didn't disclose to the UFC that he was a man. He just snuck into the MMA and half murdered a woman. The ref had to stop the fight because Fox continued to beat the woman until she was down and not responding. The real woman wasn't told she was fighting a man until after she got out of the hospital. Congratulations, you just got your ass kicked by a man. How do you feel? Not too good about it, probably. Stunning and brave. It is a brave new world. The socialist Antifa kids would rather a man beat the stuffing out of a woman than admit that the sexes are different. Because once you admit that little fact, what's next? Admitting that races are different? But I dare not say any more because YouTube considers bell curves as verboten. Wrongthink is double plus ungood. Social media has a terrifying habit of dehumanizing wrongthinkers. Mr. Gay Frogs Jones was a comedian, and YouTube, Twitter, Facebook all simultaneously unpersoned him simply because he helped Trump get elected in 2016. Doesn't that catch your attention? Social media used to be the edgy alt media. Now UTwitbook is mainstream media. It's controlled by the ADL, SPLC, ACLU, i.e. these socialist parasites that control CNN. So alt media sprung up to try to bring balance to the alt-left media, Gab, BitChute, DLive. So naturally, the ADL, CNN folks must try to shut down the competition. Oh, this is the moment where he cucks. He says, I'm leaving it up because an apology is meaningless if you don't own crossing a line. That was a very Essie thing to do. I apologize deeply for hurting anyone with the discussion. And Isabel Brain says it's not accepted. Never apologize to SJWs. Especially, well, never do it. Was Pace right in saying men shouldn't beat the hell out of women and put them in the hospital? Break their skull. How dare he? How dare you, Richard Pace, who is, from what I remember, a total soy boy pussy, standing up for women, not getting the shit kicked out of them. How about informed consent? How about the men who claim to be women? How about the UFC has to inform the women fighters and they can opt out of the fight if they don't want to fight a man? Or why not? You know what? If we're going to be perfectly honest about this, why not just make it open competitions for all sports, especially for the UFC? You go by weight class, so anyone competes with anyone. So all these trans women can compete against, biological men, and biological women can compete against biological men. And you know what will happen? Well, it will be weight classes, biological men against biological women, who will beat trans women who will beat biological women because biology. Anyway, so Pace had a and he immediately cucks. Just was it a day? How much time went by? Shit, it wasn't even a day, you absolute pussy. And then he blames painkillers. So he had his mild disagreement on one issue, but the difference with the left and the right is the left is a collective ruled by their masters, while the right is a collection of diverse opinions who aren't afraid to fight with each other. Just take a look at Comicsgate. The left is always going to reach a consensus before going public with an opinion. They'll float questions like, so how do we feel about this? They'll always try to get someone else to take a firm stance to see how the crowd reacts. They are terrified of leaving the center of the pack because they don't fear the conservatives, they fear their own alt-left. That's why when their own Neil Adams dared to step off the plantation for a minute when he asked about conservatives getting blacklisted in comics, he got called on the carpet toot sweet. He had a come-to-Jesus moment and chose money over principles. Donald DeLay was also concern-trolled and finally canceled by the SJWs when he dared to ask what exactly Richard Meyer has done to make him Stalin. Actually, Comics Twitter, which is alt-left, will issue warnings all the time. They'll keep reminding people that comics is a small community, and they will remember those who voted for Trump. Look at the top 200 people in comics. How many are going to vote Trump? Go ahead, ask them, but they'll probably just block you. 0 is what you're going to come up with. How many Comicsgate guys will vote Trump? Probably 3/4. Because Pace wanted to see fair competition, the NPCs jumped in and said they removed him from their pull list. Then they found out that he had the audacity to mildly suggest that Eric Esquivel was entitled to due process when accused of bad acts. That's 2 strokes, Pace, you're dead to them. So Pace pulled a Roseanne Barr and blamed pills for his tweet. Barr is a far-left Hollywood Jew, which is usually redundant when you combine those words. But Barr doesn't suffer from TDS, so she had to be canceled. They hate it when one of their own calls out their hypocrisy. It's why Tim Pool is probably going to get kicked off YouTube any day now, because he's the moderate left, pointing out that Trump ain't that bad and the alt-left controls the media. I think YouTube is going to find an excuse to boot Tim Pool, and really, what is anyone going to do about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just go back to consuming bread and circuses. All right, guys, like, comment, subscribe. You want to support the channel? Buy me a coffee at thecoffee.com. You click the links, and they'll take you to Patreon, PayPal, Coffee, Teespring, T-shirts. Want to send me comics or email at biancazombie602@gmail.com. Or if you just want to get a hold of me, you can send me an email, and that's good enough. Not accepted. I apologize deeply for hurting anyone with this discussion. Not accepted. Then there's no point in apologizing. There's no point in apologizing. You weren't wrong. You weren't wrong. You had an opinion that men shouldn't beat the hell out of women. They should have fair competition. It's a perfectly valid opinion to hold. At least the moderates and right-of-center people, we can disagree without having to just do this. Absolutely bend over. Offer your back hole to probably a dude with a wig, and have them take it and shoot some SJW justice all over your face, and then not forgive you. Don't be this kind of pussy. But he's in the business. He's selling whatever he's selling, comic books. So he wants to get invited to cons. He doesn't want to get canceled. I'm surprised he even had the balls to even dare mention the trans thing. The thing is, he's probably in his 50s, so he's a little bit over the bell curve, the cusp of knowing what is far left anymore, what is acceptable. And the thing is, when you're on the left, you just have to assume everything is going to continue to moving into further left, into communism, and ultimately into gulags. And I know when I say that word gulags, people kind of roll their eyes and laugh and think, oh, you're just Alex Jones tinfoil hat. Well, kids, well, I know I'm not talking to kids. I know I'm talking to adults. I saw the who listens to the channel. It happened before. Communism killed 100 million people. It will definitely happen again. History repeats itself. World War III is right around the effing corner. I won't say it. All right, I will see you guys all next episode.